So, as some of you may know, Camazotz saw a buff recently, or a change rather, on the PTS. I will not go into builds in this video yet because I feel like it's too early, because we might see additional changes down the road and I don't want to make the same mistake that I did with Izanami. But in this video, we'll be taking a look at his current state and how he compares to other assassins when it comes to his numbers and also his kit in general. Let's start with the raw numbers. I've compared Camazotz's base damage and his scalings to a few other assassins of different kinds, and there are some interesting aspects about that. First of all, when talking about Camazotz, it's important to keep in mind that this guy has 4 raw damaging abilities, and he only has 1 CC, 1 soft CC, whereas many other assassins either have a steroid or something similar in the kit, or an ability that's exclusively reserved for CC. So many of them only have 3 damaging abilities, and only a few actually end up with 4 damaging abilities themselves. This makes the comparisons a little harder, but I will show you how it can still be compared to at least some extent. Camazotz's exact numbers for his total base damage if you land everything are 1910. His scaling is 395. Now keep in mind that this assumes that you land absolutely everything. Especially with the ult, I feel like you're a lot more likely to hit a maximum of 2 of the 3 hits. Sometimes even just 1, you just need to move towards the target with the ultimate. Obviously it can happen, or you can also hit multiple targets with the additional scaling that you get for that. But I would feel like it's rather rare from how he feels while playing him so far. It's kind of hard to land multiple ultimates, not only because you have a very short amount of time to do so, but also because he moves with every ultimate you do, so you really need to follow the pathing of the enemy, and it's kind of easy to juke, also because you can't go around walls too well. So we'll just assume that he hits all 3 hits. If that's not the case, his base damage drops down to 1600 and he loses 40% scaling, so he's around 355% scaling then. For the purpose of comparing everything in the maximum amount here, we'll just go for that. So if you want to have some rough numbers to remember, roughly 2000 base damage and roughly 400% scaling. Very good numbers for a character. Let's compare that to Arachne first. Arachne only has 2 damaging abilities. She has a steroid on top of that, which is also a stun. Arachne has a similar amount of mobility in other regards. She's got more movement speed, not a leap, but she has the ultimate to get off sticky situations a little better than Camazotz because she can jump over walls with that. But overall, the mobility is similar. She also is single damage target focused. She also has a built-in heal. So I think those are the easiest ones to compare. Now Arachne has roughly 1500 base damage, so roughly 500 less than Camazotz, assuming you land your ultimate in someone's face, which you're not often going to do, but, you know, just for the sake of comparing everything as close as it gets. She has roughly half the scaling of Camazotz, 195%, so that's significantly less, I would say. When it comes to healing, there's a bit of a difference. Between the heal on Camazotz 2 and the Camazotz 3, he has 75 base heal, assuming that he hits 1 target, and he has 125% scaling. So very low base value. The base value only gets higher when you hit like a minion wave with a 3 or something like that, but very, very high scaling, so he's very dependent on building power for higher healing, that is. Arachne, on the other hand, has 300 base healing, so a lot more, but only 60% scaling, and that's all in her 1. Also, she needs to be close. That's the difference between them in general. Camazotz can deal a lot of his damage from range, whereas Arachne needs to be in your face to deal that damage. So, who's got the advantage in the end? I would say Camazotz in many regards, simply because he's a lot safer while doing all this stuff, and he also has some added utility in his kit. And the CC on Arachne's 2 is just not that easy to confirm. It's there, but you have to be really in your enemy's face, and basically in a situation where they will definitely die either way. So I would say Camazotz has the upper edge compared to Arachne, has more multi-target damage as well and stuff like that, which already helps. Then again, they're not too different when it comes to the base numbers when you consider that Arachne has 1 ability less for base damage and has a steroid instead. Let's look at another character that has no steroid and 3 damage abilities. That would be Serqet. Serqet has a total of 1,574 damage, of which 684 are true. So generally speaking, you could say it's quite a lot more when you consider the defense on a target. So I would say it's like roughly a 200 damage difference to Camazotz when it comes to base damage. Now, Serqet's abilities are almost exclusively single target. Her scaling is also quite significantly lower. It is 235%. However, obviously her ultimate doesn't scale because it's through damage, so that factors in a little bit as well. But in the end, the numbers are in favor of Camazotz more than they are in favor of Serqet here as well. Though, what you have to keep in mind is Serqet works very well off her hard CC and her mobility. And that's something that factors in with all the other gods as well. If we go through the numbers here, Naja, Thanatos, and Susano are all around 900 to 1,100 base damage. Scaling is very different though, ranging from 210 on Thanatos up to 450 on current Susano, and even getting a little more in the next patch. So the range between assassins really varies, and they can still feel kind of similar in strength depending on the mobility and the rest of what their kit offers. Obviously, you would still say, looking at these numbers, that Susano has a bit of an upper hand compared to Thanatos, for example, whereas Naja just works off CC a lot better and also gets a lot of extra damage by critting, if he crits. Thana, on the other hand, has that built-in penetration and also a heal. Even though the heal is once again weaker, it's a 285 heal with 45% scaling, so lower than both Arachne and Camazotz total healing in most scenarios. Then you have Thor, who's also more of a team-oriented character, who gets 1,480 damage, also nearly 1,500, and still has 435 scaling. So, despite of Camazotz having that really high base values there, in terms of scaling, Susano and Thor outclass him by a fair bit still. So he's not the highest scaling god. Then again, how often are you confirm the whole 3 on Thor? And how often are you confirm the double tap? That's all stuff that factors in. With Camazotz, that's the same thing. You have to hit all his line abilities to be effective. But that just became a little bit easier because now we have more damage on the 1 thanks to that change. And that way it's easier to confirm because the 1 is relatively easy to hit. Whereas we lost some damage on the ultimate, but still more than strong. And if you consider hitting only 2 of the ults, the damage loss is a total of 40 base damage. Scaling actually stayed the same, even though they were supposed to be nerfed. So overall, Camazotz remains very, very high up in terms of what he can deal in damage. And he also has crazy sustain. When I originally played him, I felt like he was lackluster in many regards. And that's because he does lack in other areas in return for that. And we go through this here. So, first of all, obviously it's a 6-week god release, so we were expecting a unique kit. Didn't really happen. His kit is not all that unique after all. 2 line abilities, a leap and a dash ult, which is a bit unique. Focus of the unique part is rather on the fact that he has a lot of lifesteal. The data mine ult seemed a little more exciting in my opinion. That also makes a difference. He has some clunkiness in his kit. For example, his 2 can easily be blocked by minions. His 3 can hardly get over any walls. He cannot use his ult while crippled despite of being CC immune after using it. His ult doesn't go through walls either. So if you are like somewhere in the jungle and you can walk around a pillar, Camazotz is not going to hit you with more than 1 ult because it's way harder for him to actually get to you as he can't swoop through the wall. He also is very focused on lifesteal, but most of his damage comes from his abilities, which then in return need their own lifesteal built in instead of benefiting from the lifesteal that's in his passive, because he really doesn't do much with basic attacks outside of the jungle. He's an assassin, but at the same time he has to stand around for extended periods of time to heal, which in my opinion feels kind of awkward. He also is an assassin that has wings and looks like the most mobile character in the game, when in reality he has one of the lowest mobility kits in his class. Not the lowest, but one of the lowest. Last but not least, his ult duration feels extremely short, so you hardly have time to aim it. So there's a little bit of skill cap there, and I would say overall he has a decent amount of skill cap, especially between his 2 and his ultimate. But I feel like on this character, you could easily trade some damage for making him less clunky. Make the leap go over walls. Allow his ult to have a little more timing, just so you're actually able to aim it a little bit better. Let the 2 pass through minions so it hits guards right away. In return, maybe take away a little bit of his wave clear possibilities with the 1. Take a little bit of his lifesteal from the 2 and 3. just something that doesn't allow him to stay in there forever after a fight. His essence pool heal him up like crazy. If he gets a kill, then he's just so hard in terms of snowballing that I really don't see any reasoning for that to be necessary. So in the end, he's way too strong in some places, namely damage and sustain, but at the same time he feels really awkward and clunky in others, and I don't think that needs to be necessary. I feel like you could balance the kit out easily to give him some more potential as for when it comes to early rotations over walls and stuff like that, and for being an overall character that feels fair to play against and not one that just snowballs in your face the moment he gets the opportunity to. Because at the moment he's just unstoppable the moment he snowballs just a little bit, and even if you fall behind, you have such an easy time keeping up as long as somebody dies, because you can just heal and keep farming and not go back to base until you have exactly that item that you want. And that, in my opinion, is a little crazy. I would like to see him adjusted in that regards. That's my early conclusion. We will do a build for him as soon as he's on the live servers, so it actually makes more sense to know the stats. As of now, you can easily build him full power or with some defense to make more use of his utility in terms of lifesteal and in terms of sustain, but both works. That's the early review for the state of Camazotz. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you all tomorrow. SLOTH out.